What's up, everybody? We've got the ultimate tricky UI challenge for you today. 3 devs. We are going to try to use HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript to recreate this tricky real-world UI from this app called Pioneer. At the very end, we have a set of categories that we're going to be competing on, and we need you, the audience, to tell us who has done the best job. So we got myself, I'm Wes, we got Scott here, and CJ. You guys ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Nope.
Nope.
I have no idea how. I've never built UIs like this. I see there's like easing, there's things bouncing around. I'm gonna have to do a lot of research to figure out how to recreate this.
If you think easing is the biggest challenge here, then I'm concerned for you.
Mr. Math. Well, there's a lot of math in here. I think there's going to be a handful of math, so you'll probably like this. The rules are, you can take as long as you want. You can use anything you want. You can use AI, you can use libraries, you can bring in GSAP. There's no rules. Basically, whatever you want, you can do it. And then we're going to come back when we're done, and we're going to compare them and vote on who did the best job, who's the most accurate, who has the most clever implementation, several other categories.
Let's get going.
All right, let's get into it. All right, we're back. It's the next day. We all obsessed over it. Probably took way longer. I thought it would take an hour. How long did it take you guys?
I was at 3 hours, 15 minutes.
You timed it. Wow.
We were supposed to with commits, but I didn't commit.
Yeah, I kind of went off the rails, and like at one point I was editing in my car, waiting for my kids to get done ballet. Yeah. But it was fun. That was a very fun one, and I'm really excited to see how poorly you guys did, because I feel like I did an awesome job.
Yeah, I'm likewise excited to see just how much I'm going to wipe the floor with both of you.
So you think you did a good job, Scott?
I think I did the best job. I don't think it's going to be close. Yeah.
We'll see. I think we'll also get into like, because I wrote a lot of JavaScript, and looking at the chat, I know you guys wrote a lot of CSS. So we could also talk about how scalable this is. Like, what code base would you actually want to work in? Because
the answer is mine on all accounts.
Yeah, the answer, no, you can't. CJ's already making excuses for his
because I'm proud of my code.
JavaScript.
My code is clean.
So Scott, did you use any JavaScript? I know that you were fussing with the labels. 0. Me too. 0. Bob Kiss. 0 JavaScript.
Okay. That wasn't in the rules.
Sure. So. All right, Scott. Let's see yours.
All right.
Send me the link. First. This feels good.
So my implementation uses only CSS. It is super duper fast. It works really super well and is infinitely scalable. To show you just how scalable it is, I even built a Svelte implementation that allows you to remove icons, and it works the exact same. So infinitely scalable. And this is just CSS. Now, the Svelte version, all it's doing is adding and removing icons or making it a little bit easier to loop over. That's it.
But you're inlining the index of the item with JavaScript, right?
I am doing that only in Svelte, and I am inlining the index in my HTML.
Okay.
You'll see these data labels. Those aren't actually being used. I didn't remove them. So let's talk about how I did this. Oh, actually, let me call attention to some of the finer points that I think you two might miss out on.
Okay.
The border on this donut is very difficult. And I noticed in CJ's, he was unable to do that. He did a box shadow instead of a border. 2, I don't know who else did a gradient mesh in the background. You did a gradient mesh?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay. It's like a one-line CSS and then repeat it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Wait. What do you know? You didn't do a gradient mesh because you can't do that with CSS.
What do you mean? What's a gradient mesh then? Like the dots in the background?
You created the dots with just CSS. I have an SVG. That's the dots.
No. The gradient mesh is not the dots. The gradient mesh is the background color, where this corner is dark blue, this corner is red, and over here is yellow, and they mesh together. You can't do that in CSS. I did it in SVG, and I don't think anybody else is doing that.
You could do that in CSS.
You can't.
You just do multiple background gradients that have opacity.
Google gradient mesh CSS. Right. You cannot do it. Either way.
Continue.
I don't think anybody else had that attention to detail, so I'm just selling it a little bit. So I had
Speaking of attention to detail, your font is broken. Maybe it's just slow to load, but like...
It's your computer. because it looks fine on mine. And guess what the font is?
Times New Roman?
No,
Times
the
New
font.
Roman?
Is it showing up for you guys as Times New Roman?
Yeah.
That makes no sense because it's SF, which is it's a Mac system font.
Oh, shoot. I use that too.
I don't even know if you're legally allowed to ship that. I thought that was just either way.
SF Pro Rounded. You got to use -Apple System if you want to use the system font.
Yeah, but it's SF Pro Rounded. So
all right, I'll stop bagging on you.
So let's talk about how I did it with just CSS. There's two things that are hard-coded in here that are requirements. You need to know the total, which can happen via JavaScript, and you need to have an index. Other than that, everything else is being done with some crazy CSS selectors. The donut is being done with a gradient. The border on the donut is being done with a shadow using filter, a CSS filter, because that's the only way you can get it on the inside.
Good move.
And then for the labels in here, the labels are paragraph tags, so none of that's being done with JavaScript, and they're adjacent to each of the squares. So each square has a paragraph tag adjacent to it. I did the circle using clip path. Well, not clip path. I used it offset path, and I did a circle. If you did offset path using SVG without a circle, it would actually not allow you to have negative offset distances. So initially I'd had it with offset path as a SVG circle, and then if you're trying to do negative distances, it would fail on the borders. The math here is pretty dope. Each one has an offset and a delta. The delta is how much it moves, and the offset is basically its position along the circle. So I'm calculating the percentage of each one's offset using its index, dividing it by the total, and multiplying it by 100% to get them to distribute evenly. Mm-hmm. And then the distance, the offset distance, is the current offset plus the delta, plus how much it's set to be changed. And so each one, this one moves like 5%, then 3%, then 1%.
This is exactly how I did it. Smart. Oh, yeah. You're a smart guy, Scott.
I love to hear that, Wes.
Can you talk me through these offset? I've never used these offset properties before. So offset rotate, offset path, offset distance. Where are they used? What are they for?
Yeah. So you have a clip path, or you have a path, right? You have an SVG path. Okay. And you put something at 0% on that path, it's going to put it at the start of the path. If you bump that up to 50%, it's going to put it 50% of the way through the path. So the offset distance is the 0 to 100% distance around that total path. So if you say 25% is the distance, it's going to put it down here. So when I set something at 0 and I say the new offset distance on hover is going to be the current, which is 0, plus the delta, how much it's supposed to move, it bumps it down 5% or bumps it up negative 5%. And that's how it moves it to the right spot. And then it's just with transitions. That math to do the movement of it happening are some of the most insane CSS selectors I've ever written in my entire life. I want you to witness the insanity that is some of these CSS selectors. So the first ones aren't really that crazy. Let me just walk you through some of these crazy selectors. And let me tell you, I wrote these all by hand because I wrote out in English how they were supposed to work first and then wrote them by hand. So the way you got to think about this is anytime you see a has, that is the item you are actually applying CSS to. So to take this one for example, I'm looking at the first square that exists, then next to that is a P, and then next to that is a square. But I'm only modifying that square if it has a square that is being hovered next to the last paragraph tag. Okay, let's say we have 0 through 10. If number 10 is being hovered, then number 1 should be moving positively by 3%. Other than that, there's not much too craziness in here. Like I said, the donut is just a radial gradient. The most difficult about this whole thing is when you get to the border. Like, because if you have the first one, you need to worry, like, if I hover over 0, I need 10, 9, and 8 to modify.
That
and
was
likewise,
the most awful part. Your offsets, the 150 pixels, like when your icons move around it, they feel like they're not following the curve of the thing. It feels like they're just going over and down, and they're not actually being rotated on the circle's radius.
Oh, they are absolutely being rotated along the circle.
We're going to have to bring out a circle tool for this one.
You know what?
Can you explain that, Wes? What do you mean?
Okay.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
When you hover over top of one of the icons, hover over the hyper one at the top.
Sure.
The icons go down and to the left, like a little bit down on the Y and a little bit on the X. Mm-hmm. And they should be rotating out from the center of the circle instead of just going down and over.
They're not still on the circle?
Do you look at my screen right now? Do you need any more evidence? They are following the dang path.
No, but when they're hover one of them.
This is what's happening when I hover it. They're following the same path when I hover it.
All right, I'm bringing out Figma and the circle tool right now.
Look, when I'm rotating, when I'm moving the offset.
Yeah, you're not hovering them though, Scott.
Maybe it's easier to see when there's less of the icons. Because if there's less icons, you can see them very clearly. See, Look at that, Wes. Look at it.
Oh, you're right. They are. No, I just lined them up with Figma. They are. It just didn't look good. I'm trying to find things. Yeah, that's a beauty.
It's a beauty. I'm sorry. It's a beauty.
Yeah, one thing I will say, right now, the number of icons spreading, I guess, is fixed based on the amount of CSS that you had. So if you wanted more so right now, I guess it's 4 on each side or 3 on each side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if each new one that you want to add, that's a whole nother selector you need to add.
You mean if you want more to spread out?
Yeah,
if you
exactly.
Want it to spread more?
Yeah, I'll show you in the code, but on mine I use a percentage. So basically, depending on the number of icons, I get 30% of them, and 30% are the amount that actually spreads versus just 3 or 4, like a static number.
Oh, yeah, I was going off the video, and it looked like 4 of them were moving.
Was it?
3 or 4 of them would scooch around over.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Scott's wrong there. There was no example in the video.
Yeah.
Let me call attention to another small little detail I have here. When you hover over one, the Z indexes stack on the other one. So you see, like, if I hover over this one, if you look at Z's sketch in the waveform, they all then stack sequentially. And likewise.
Oh, that's
look at that.
Attention to detail.
And the reason why that's an attention to detail is because then when you hover over the next one, you're not having to wait for something to move or overlap, because it's constantly going to be the correct Z index to do that.
Yeah, I will say that's not how it is in the animation though, because I was.
Oh, I know.
I was trying to figure out how do they do the Z index, and it's almost just like they're stacked in one direction, and they always stay in that stack.
Yes, and I thought that was bad.
Swapping Z index.
Yeah.
No keyboard shortcuts here?
I don't see the need for keyboard shortcuts.
What about blind people or people without a mouse?
Well, if these were anchor tags, they would automatically just give you that focus.
But they're not.
Wow. Did you make two versions, one with JavaScript and one with HTML? Let's see that.
It was a good effort.
Valiant
effort, Scott.
Best effort.
No, actually, that was very impressive.
Cool. All right, here's mine. One thing I don't know, maybe it gives me bonus points. I don't know how useful this is, but look at this. Oh no. Okay, there we go. Yeah. it's on window. I thought they were going to not, but yeah, it's all relative, and I'm using relative units too. So
I think that
depending
can
on the
give
window
you some
size.
bonus points.
All resizable.
It's all resizable.
It's a nice touch.
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's like a percentage amount for the number of icons. So when you hover over one, I'm doing number of icons divided by 3. And that's how many move on each side. And then one thing I will say about yours, Scott, I think your label in the center was a little bit too rounded. I think you had a little bit too much border radius. If you look at the original...
Oh, it's got more than yours, though. The original got more than yours.
But
I will also say, CJ, if you're going to throw stones here at the label, I will say yours is woefully missing the CSS target here. It has absolutely no rounded texture. There's like no inset shadow.
Border.
There's no text shadow. There's
line height is off.
There's no actual shadow. CJ, this is not one that you want to throw glass or throw stones here, because that has text shadow. It has an inset shadow.
Scott's is way closer, even though it doesn't have the right font. Scott's is bang on.
Yeah, all I was pointing at was at the border radius, not anything else, because this image is so small and it's pixelated. I can't see. I was guessing so much. Like Scott already threw shade at it, but like I literally did an outline and a box shadow because I have no idea. It's tiny. I don't know what they're trying to do here. I actually started with like the background in the circle first. So I actually used fuel. We have this pattern generator.
Yes.
So yeah, I use that to make the pattern. And then this is, you're right. It's just a linear gradient. It goes from like a light gray to like a yellowish color from on the left and the right. But yeah, let me show you the code. So basically all JavaScript, I mean, obviously there's CSS that sets the position of these, but let me get you to, I use Vue.js, because I've been in Nuxt and stuff like that. I have all the icons stored in a JSON file, so load all of that in, and then that's going to give us the total number of apps. And essentially we have 360 degrees divided by the total number of apps, and that's going to give you the dangle for each of the icons. And that angle is all I need to position all of the icons. Each icon gets a transform that looks like this. So it first rotates, and actually I'll start here. Each icon is just in the center. So the icon itself is absolutely positioned and all the icons are on top of each other, and then that transform just moves each one to where it needs to be inside of the circle. This transform like rotates the icon, the translate moves it onto the circle, and so that translate value there is based on the width of the circle itself. So I have the dial, which is the circle. I can get its width, and that moves it so that it's on a path within the circle. And then the final rotate straightens it out.
Oh, wow. So you're straightening it out. Wow, that's...
Yeah, so if you look at this with no transform, it's just in the center. The first rotates it from there. Then the translate...
I did that too.
The translate puts it onto the circle.
Yeah, you rotate the whole item, and then the icon gets rotated back.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Clip path was so much easier than that.
No chance.
So yeah, that gets all of the icons on there. And then for the selector, it can just reuse the current transform of whichever one is selected. So on any one of these icons, they have a mouse enter. So that selects it. That sets the selected index. And then this is the little blue selector thingy that can use the transform for the one that's selected. And then it just adds an additional rotate. So by default, the little blue thing would appear straight through all of the icons. But then depending on where it is in the circle, selected index divided by number of icons, multiply that by 360. That'll give you where that icon is in the circle. And then I add one more rotate for that selected item. So if you look at the little blue box, which is hard because I also have mouse in and mouse out, so like it disappears, so I can't really select it. But
can I say that it feels like the Android version of this?
Yeah, it does.
It's a little clunky.
There's a slight lag to it all, and not saying that as a shade, but is that just like my browser's being kind of laggy in general?
No, I think it might also be my CSS transition. So right now I have the icon has transition all 0.25 seconds, ease in, ease out. And this is what the transform is getting set on, that specific icon. So anytime a transform is changed on an icon, it takes a quarter of a second for it to move. So it could be compounding, right? Because if you go to select the one beside it, I guess it's still a quarter of a second for it to translate. I don't know. I could work on getting it smoothed out. I was just happy I even got here because I had... as you can see,
CJ was stressed, man.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah. And then I guess we'll talk about the selected. The little select icon is a trapezoid with a polygon clip path. I think this is my first clip path I've ever used in my life.
Oh, that's
so you did use clip path. Yeah, I use polygon clip path as well for that shape. It was tough to get a shape that looked good there.
You know what I did? I traced it in Figma and exported to inline SVG.
That is so smart. I'm regretting not doing that.
I used cssshapes.com and it gave me a trapezoid that I then modified from there.
That's nice though.
Yeah. When I'm running locally, that font does load in. I guess I'll just say if you look at their landing page, that's what I kind of assumed what font they were using, this body font here, but it could probably be the Mac system font too.
Did you crunch down the icons?
I pulled my system icons. Yeah, so I didn't want to go through and name every single icon, so I wrote a script that got every single one of my icons on my machine, pulled the base64 image, and then I made them a lot smaller. So when they load,
trying to see why you were loading so many less images than me in kilobytes wise, and then I used the image or the icons.
I resized them. Yeah, I got them to 200 by 200 pixels because before it was like 10. Well,
oh yeah, they're some biggies.
Some of them were
megs.
huge. I just took them straight out of the Mac OS apps and threw them in a folder.
I guess maybe I'll get points for this. When you load my site, it's only 1 megabyte, including images. It's smaller.
That's good.
But how much JavaScript?
Yeah.
I will say the code itself feels easier to grasp, though, because it's literally get the angle in the circle. And then I guess I didn't talk about the offset, but really this just calculates how far you are from the selected one. And that's the value that can be modified. So if I change this to like 4 or 5 or 2, that would increase the number that expand out from the one that's selected. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
How exactly is this easier to comprehend? Mine you're just moving the percentage along a circle. Is it 5% along the circle? And this you're like double rotating things and got
I'll
like all this
give CJ credit here. Doing it in JavaScript would have been easier. And debugging in CSS sucks.
Yeah, mainly just talking about your selectors, Scott. Like you have all these selectors. If you want to change one thing, you're gonna have to go update like 4 selectors. If I want to change the distance
I don't have to update
or the number of icons, I change this number right here. If I want to change how many apps are displayed, I change one value right here.
I don't know if you saw it, CJ, but I could do that as well without changing any CSS.
You guys are all jokers for having to set how many items are in there. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, okay. We'll see what you have there. Okay.
All right.
It's broken in Firefox.
Okay, first of all, don't worry about Firefox. Let's stop
Everything
trash
is
talking
broken
before
in
I
Firefox.
explain it. Okay, so right now, look at this. I've got all of my items here, and you don't notice that I've been inlining index values, right? What happens if I delete a whole bunch of these items? Boom, it still works. Boom. There's no JavaScript to be found. How am I doing this? Bam, sibling index, sibling count.
Yeah, I know. Guess what? That's not supported by literally anything. So
it's supported by literally everything except for most of the browsers. And this value is able to it counts how many items are a sibling, and then it also gives you like a 1, 2, 3, 4 for where you are. So I'm taking the index and the count, and I'm calculating the degree rotate for every single one. And then when you hover over top of each one, what I'm doing is I'm adding a scooch variable to each one, which is how much further should it rotate. So by default, you get your actual rotation value. And then when you hover over top of one of them, we take that scooch value and increment it or decrement it by a certain amount. So I back it off by 20% every single time.
Are they supposed to be doing this weird kind of dance around when you hover over one? Like when they scooch, they all kind of like go like.
Yes, they are actually supposed to be doing that.
Just a quick, does the deployed site work for anyone else?
I mean, it works for me if you can call this working.
Well, I tried it in Chrome, and even that one, all of the icons are just stacked on top of each other at the top. I don't know. Do I?
Here's why. No, CJ, here's why. Sibling Index doesn't even have a Can I Use page, and he is in a Chrome Canary or something that
Chrome
is like
Canary.
super.
I have a flag turned on.
Experimental web features.
Latest.
Yeah,
experimental web features. As developers, we have that turned on. So I could inline them as well, like Scott did, but I decided to make it nice and variable.
I could sibling index mine as well.
Yes, you could have. Also, fully resizable. Look at this. If you want it bigger or smaller, it totally resizes. And for that, I'm using a container query. So the actual size of the ring is going to be the container minimum, meaning that if the height is smaller than the width, it uses the height and vice versa, which is really cool. Obviously, it gets a little small there. So totally responsive, totally flexible to the amount of items that you're adding in. So that's the first one we have there.
I will say yours is very sharp. Like mine, when you hover over everything moves very sharply, and like there's no lag at all, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
That was hard. I think that is maybe a testament to the no JavaScript approach. I think that handles it a little bit better, but yours definitely is very snappy.
Totally.
Are the labels working?
Yep, the labels are... Oh, shit, I just turned them off by accident. Okay, hold on. They were working like 2 minutes ago. Oh, so opacity 0 is on there. There we go. Oh, no, now they're... Hold on. None. There we go. Okay, so this is a problem I have. See how they wiggle? I could not figure out that. So let me show you my approach to rotating the items. I could not get the wiggle out. The items themselves are rotated.
Yes.
If I put like a border 1px solid red on that, right? You see, the items themselves are rotated off of the middle here. And then I take the image. See how, like, that's what they do by default.
Yeah.
So then you take the image and you take the rotate value and you multiply it by -1, and that clocks it back to where we want. And then the downside to that approach is that it does this little wiggle every time you did. I had tried to put like a transition delay so it did it after. And then I also tried to use... putting these labels right here, I tried using CSS anchors so I could just put them bang in the middle of, but you can't use CSS anchor when you when an element has a transition on it. It just it's out the window. It's not part of the spec. I literally at 11 p.m. last night was reading the anchor spec to try to get it to work.
I think I have a solution for you.
What?
Because the labels are children of the same thing as the icon.
The labels are not children. You know what the labels are?
They're okay, so they're
attributes.
So, okay, the solution would have been to have them be like siblings of your icon. So the way I did it, because I had the same problem, except for my problem was with clip offset path. You can't use position fixed or position absolute because it becomes relative to the item along the path. And the only solution to that was to have them be siblings.
I was going to put them like you mean like right beside it, right?
Correct.
Here, right?
Yeah.
So I was going to do that, but then my cool trick of using sibling count would break because now all of a sudden you have double the siblings.
Yeah.
Could you do some math there? You could divide it by 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. I had to reach out to Una for some help here. And this sibling count, sticking it in a variable, it was not accessible at a lower level. And I needed these values. And she said, you have to set it as a custom property and tell it the type. That has the added benefit of being able to animate and transition them as well. But that allows you to inherit it, meaning you can access it at a lower level, which I was pretty happy with.
I love the responsiveness. I'm actually really impressed that you did use the sibling count or whatever that is, because I just literally learned about that yesterday while researching this. And I decided against it only because of the support for it. But I am impressed that you went there.
Yeah. And then I had some gnarly selectors, just like Scott. When you are hovering the last one, which is right here, you have to then select the first couple, and there's no great way to do that.
But it is flexible though, because because you're dealing with last and first, you're not having to worry about how many are added here, right? I mean, that's very flexible. The selector's gnarly, but it's not like it's like a write once and forget it. Yeah.
If I take this off, watch this. When you resize it, CJ's had this too.
Yeah.
You see how
Delays.
when you resize it, there's like a delay, and that's because there's a transition on each of the items. So what I did is I say, how do I turn the transitions off when I'm resizing it? So what I said is when you are hovering the resizer, but you are not hovering the ring itself, then select the items and turn off the transition, which essentially when my mouse is like right here, when I'm resizing it, I can turn off the transition and it feels like nice and snappy.
Wow. I gotta say, guys, that these are all amazing different approaches to this. I am a little shocked that nobody else went with the offset path, because to me, this is
that was a good call. Yeah.
I think this is like, this is when you use offset path, but I am like crazy impressed to see that we all managed to get there with completely different techniques. Holy cow, that was crazy, guys. All right, award categories: Speed Demon, Clever Girl, Itty Bitty, Least Amount of JS, Hacker Man, Pixel perfect. People's choice.
Well, let's give the most amount of JS to CJ.
Yeah.
16.
This is the
16
CJ gets the dump
JavaScript.
truck award. Yes.
Yeah.
CJ's bringing that dump truck.
Least amount of JavaScript. Obviously, Scott and I tied on that one. Probably, I'm gonna win that one since he wrote a svelte one just to show off.
He technically wrote JavaScript. Yeah.
Yeah, he did write JavaScript to add items. Yeah, at some point, something either needs to be hard coded with the number of items, or you have to use a feature that is not available to 98% of the world.
Yeah, totally.
I guess for speed demon, I clocked in at 3 hours 15 minutes. What did you guys have?
Oh, mine is not going to be accurate because I worked on it this morning and I worked on it yesterday.
Yeah, I probably was about 3 hours, maybe a little less.
Yeah,
so
I would say I'm probably similar to that because I worked on it after our podcast recording for a couple hours, and then I would say maybe 2.5, 3. I don't know if it's scientific enough to give.
Yeah,
me
maybe we should say speed demon is we all severely underestimated how long this would take.
Yes. I didn't, but yeah.
Clever girl. Who had the most clever solution?
I feel like with all of my variables and clocking, I use sine and cos for a while, and I ripped it out because I don't understand how triangles work.
I feel like offset path. To me,
offset
offset
path
path was
I'll give it to you.
the innovation.
I don't know. All right, let's give Scott that one because I don't think that I would have never thought of that. That was pretty clever. You're a clever girl.
Thank you. I'll take it. Itty bitty. Who wrote the least amount of code?
Oh,
I think it's me.
are we doing lines of code or?
That's the first easiest metric.
Or character. Let's do characters. And CJ, you have to include the entire library of Vue.
Yeah, I guess
I could have written it without Vue.
I have 8,688 characters. I have 885 words, 277 lines of code.
Oh, mine's 9,500 characters. 277. My HTML is 105.
I feel like CJ's is going to be the least lines.
Yeah, so it's 407 words, 4,600 characters. But again, that's not including the Vue library. But
yeah, you have to include the Vue library.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Oh, come
Mine
on.
is 320 lines.
Okay. So I'm smaller than that, and I didn't use any libraries.
And I'm 186 lines.
Including Vue.
Not including Vue. Like,
no, you can't just it's such short code, and then you include a library to do all of it.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Yeah.
Scott, you're the winner of that one. I'm giving it.
Sorry,
What's the
CJ.
next one?
Libraries, you live by the library, you die by it. Hacker man, who had the biggest hack? I'm gonna say Wes's rotation.
Wes, because of all the stuff that doesn't work. So yeah,
I would say the rotation. Yeah, I gotta say that rotation hack where it's all like that's a hack. The all the stuff is crazy. The
rotation hack is like where it goes back.
When you hover over it and the line, they're like trying to work themselves out. Yeah,
yeah, that's probably the biggest one I would say. I'll take that.
That's hilarious.
I would say least hacky is CJ's for sure. Like the maybe most maintainable. I would probably go for that. There's some you got really have to know what you're doing with some of these oddities.
All right. Pixel perfect.
We got this one's for the comments. Who do you think did the best job overall? Which is the best? You know,
we will post all of them. We will post them. You can check them out.
Yeah.
Go try it. Tell them how snappy mine is. But yeah, vote for your favorite.
I love that. That was so much fun, guys. Holy cow. I can't wait till the next one where we inevitably think that a UI is absolutely easier than it actually ends up being. And we spend many hours on it. I hope you enjoyed this. This is more of a real world CSS challenge without that crazy timer clock. So catch you in the next one.
Peace.
Peace.